Imagine a world where intelligence could just skyrocket, dramatically increase. But what if it came with, unforeseen, maybe devastating consequences?
What would you actually risk to become brilliant?
It's a powerful question. Today, we're diving into a really unique set of progress reports. They're from a man named Charlie.
Right, and these chronicle his part in an experimental procedure, one designed specifically to boost his intelligence.
And the sources we're exploring are Charlie's own progress reports, as he spells them initially. They give us this incredibly intimate, unfiltered look at his experiences, his thoughts, his feelings.
Yeah, it's raw. You see everything through his eyes as it happens.
So our goal here is to track Charlie's transformation. We want to understand the sort of positive theories behind the experiment at first, but also the complexities that pop up as his intelligence shifts.
We'll trace his journey, from really simple tests all the way to these profound insights, but also the challenges he faces. It's quite a ride.
Absolutely. And as we start, we also want to mention Mindful Moments. It's a YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, they do AI book analysis. It's designed to get you thinking, reflecting critically.
Exactly. And Charlie's story, told through his own reports, it really provides such a powerful chance for that kind of reflection.
Okay, so looking at those early reports, what jumps out immediately is just how eager Charlie is. He wants to learn badly.
Right. Even things he doesn't get, like the ink blot test, the raw shock test, he calls it. He thinks he's failing it.
But he keeps trying. He says he wants to learn more even than people who are smarter, even than me. That's powerful motivation right there.
It really is. And you can see why the scientist might have felt optimistic seeing that drive. He wasn't just like a passive subject.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
He actively wants understanding. You see it with the maze test, too, with Algernon the mouse.
Ah, yes, Algernon. He notes that Algernon always beats him at first.
But he doesn't give up. He says, I watched Algernon and I learned how to finish the maze even if it takes me a long time. He's learning from a mouse.
That patience, that willingness, it highlights something really key about him that the experiment hoped to, amplify.
And this deep desire is set against the backdrop of the operation itself and the initial hopes surrounding it.
Yeah, the scientists, Professor Niemer and Dr. Strauss, they likely envision, overcoming cognitive limits, unlocking potential, big ideas.
Theoretical possibilities,
Yep.
enhancing brain function, expanding intellect. The potential for breakthroughs must have seemed huge.
But there were worries, too, weren't there, even early on?
Oh, definitely. Professor Niemer's wife is apparently concerned he'll become unbearable. And the nurse, Hilda, she brings up Adam and Eve.
Right, the sin with the tree of knowledge, real ethical flags being raised, even then.
Exactly. So post-operation, Charlie starts noticing small things, subtle shifts.
Like keeping up with Algernon in the maze tests.
Precisely. That's a tangible win for him. It fuels his hope, even though becoming smart isn't happening overnight like he maybe expected.
There's this sense of anticipation building in his reports.
And then he goes back to work at the bakery. The dough mixer incident.
Ah, the April Fool's prank. They set him up thinking he'll fail.
But he doesn't. He figures out the new machine, something he couldn't do just by watching before. It's a clear sign of change, right there in his familiar world.
And that must have, really seemed like proof it was working, reinforcing that initial optimism.
But here's where things get complicated. As his intellect grows, his understanding of the past sharpens.
He starts figuring out what to pull a Charlie Gordon really meant. The laughter wasn't friendly.
Exactly. He realizes he was the butt of the jokes, and he reflects on just how unaware he was. It's painful, but it's a huge step in his development.
This awareness isn't just about social stuff, though. Memories start flooding back.
Vivid ones, childhood scenes, the Christmas street, boys who tormented him, his mother.
His mother, Rose. Her conflicting desires for him. It's intense.
And Dr. Strauss encourages him to explore this. He sees the connection between cognitive growth and emotional understanding.
Which maybe wasn't the primary focus initially. Niemer seems more fixed on IQ scores.
Right, there's a bit of a contrast there. Niemer's looking at the numbers, the measurable intelligence gain. Strauss is looking at the whole person, the psychological landscape.
And Charlie's caught in the middle, trying to make sense of it all. He has that dream, the bloody locket. He tries free association.
He's grappling with integrating this new intellect with his emotional past. It suggests the scientists, for all their positive theories, maybe underestimated the sheer complexity of, being human.
And his social life doesn't just magically improve either. The rejection by Harriet.
Yeah, that echoes those older feelings of being an outsider. Higher IQ doesn't automatically fix everything.
But he keeps pushing. Learning the dough mixer with Gimpy's help shows that persistence. He still wants competence, connection.
And all this is happening while the scientists themselves seem to have differing views. Charlie overhears them arguing.
Niemer wants to publish, focus on the positive results, maybe rush things a bit.
It seems that way. Perhaps a bias towards confirming their initial optimistic theories?
Meanwhile, Charlie's just getting incredibly excited about learning. Reading, wanting to talk to college students about big ideas, literature, science, philosophy.
He's ravenous for knowledge. And, stories like Charlie's, they really make you think about complex issues. We explore more narratives like this on Mindful Moments in our podcasts. Definitely worth checking out if you find this kind of exploration valuable.
Absolutely. So as Charlie learns more, his understanding of his own past deepens too. Those memories of his mother, Rose.
Her desperate desire for him to be normal. And the arguments with his father, Matt, about his development. It's heartbreaking stuff.
The memory of soiling himself, his parents' reactions. It's so raw. The experiment's initial positive framing probably didn't factor in the weight of all this unresolved history.
No, how could it?
Yeah.
And then feelings start developing for Miss Kenyon, Alice.
His teacher. This adds a whole new layer. He gets anxious about dates, self-conscious.
He sees a psychological film with her that really resonates. But Alice is worried, right? About the dynamic changing so fast, her being his teacher.
It's a valid concern. Their relationship is shifting dramatically.
And he has that intense dream. The red-haired girl, the bloody knife. It points to these deep internal conflicts, fears about intimacy maybe.
His whole perception of Alice is changing rapidly, alongside everything else. The initial positive outlook on the procedure just didn't account for these, psychological knots.
And then there's a real moment of moral growth at the bakery. He discovers Gimpy's been stealing.
Shortchanging customers. But Charlie doesn't just run to the boss, Mr. Donner.
No, he confronts Gimpy, but handles it internally. He reflects on how people can take advantage of those seen as less capable. It shows empathy, social awareness, beyond just IQ points.
Which leads to that really pivotal moment with Professor Niemer.
Ah, yes. When Charlie asserts himself.
He says, "I was a person before the operation." That's huge.
It absolutely is. He's claiming his inherent worth, challenging the idea that his value is only tied to this new intelligence, a perspective maybe lost in the initial scientific excitement.
And his feelings for Alice keep growing. He tells her he loves her.
But she hesitates. She suggests he should maybe, see other women.
Which must feel impossible for him. He's isolated by his intelligence. He doesn't have those other connections.
Exactly. It highlights this growing gap. His intellect is soaring, but his emotional and social development is struggling to keep pace. The desire for connection with Alice is so strong, but the reality is increasingly lonely.
His continued intellectual growth actually leads him to see the scientists differently too, doesn't it?
Yeah, he starts to see their limitations, Professor Niemer, Dr. Strauss. They're not the infallible geniuses he first thought they were. He sees their flaws, their ambitions, their insecurities.
It must be disillusioning.
Very. And then comes the scientific convention.
Oh, the chaos when Algernon is released.
Right. Algernon running loose, disrupting everything. It kind of symbolizes the breakdown of this controlled experiment, doesn't it? And feeds Charlie's own growing sense of disillusionment.
He decides he needs independence after that, leaves the college.
He needs space to process everything, reflect on his past, this incredible rapid transformation. He even develops a relationship with Faye, his neighbor, exploring new experiences.
But then, the first signs with Algernon appear.
Yes, the decline. Algernon becomes erratic, less motivated, biting Charlie. It's ominous.
A terrible foreshadowing.
And the scientists, Niemer and Strauss, eventually have to acknowledge it formally. The intelligence increase is likely temporary, the Algernon-Gordon effect, they call it.
Devastating news for Charlie, and compounded by the Foundation's plan.
To send him to the Warren State home, if or when he regresses.
So he decides to go see it for himself.
Yeah, a really proactive, brave step. He wants to understand his potential future. He observes the residents, the conditions, the limited resources. It's a grim picture.
And Algernon just keeps getting worse.
Until he dies. It's a stark, unavoidable warning for Charlie.
His reaction to Algernon's death is so moving he buries him in the backyard.
Puts flowers on the grave. It shows that deep connection they shared, the parallel journeys.
After this, he seeks out his family. His mother, Rose, and his sister, Norma.
That visit is incredibly poignant. It reveals just how lasting the impact his childhood was. His mother's mental state is fragile complex.
There's this difficulty in achieving real recognition, real connection after all this time and change. Norma's reaction, too.
It's fraught with the past. Then he tries to reconnect with Alice.
Another difficult encounter, facing the emotional complexities of how much he's changed and how the relationship has changed.
They acknowledge the challenges, the impossibility perhaps, and they eventually part ways. It's heartbreaking.
And then the regression begins in earnest for Charlie.
You see it in his writing first. Motor skills declining, memory loss creeping in, spelling errors return.
But he fights it. He's determined to keep learning, reading, writing, holding on to it for as long as possible.
That same determination we saw at the start, wanting to learn, it's still there, even as his abilities fade.
He has some tough encounters as he declines further. A doctor visits, well-meaning but condescending.
And he pushes Alice away when she tries to help, perhaps out of pride or shame. It's painful to witness.
But then there's a moment of grace when he returns to the bakery.
Yes. His old coworkers, Joe Karp, Frank Riley, they stand up for him when a new employee makes fun.
It shows they genuinely cared for him, maybe in a way he couldn't appreciate before. A real contrast to the earlier mockery. They show real affection.
It's a moment of acceptance, of finding some community again.
His final entries are just incredibly moving. His abilities are fading fast, but he still expresses that desire not to forget everything, not to forget how to read and write.
And his last request. P.S. Please, if you get a chance, put some flowers on Algernon's grave in the backyard.
It brings it full circle.
Yeah.
Leaves you thinking.
It really does. Charlie's journey forces us to ask these profound questions about intelligence, What is it really? The ethics of changing it.
And the importance of human connection, regardless of IQ points. What truly defines a fulfilling life?
What's left when the brilliance fades? These aren't easy questions.
Definitely not. We hope exploring Charlie's story has given you some things to think about. Please subscribe to our show for more explorations like this one.
Yeah, and share this episode if you found it thought-provoking. If you want to read Charlie's full story yourself, check the link in the show notes to find the source material.
And most importantly, keep thinking critically about the complex issues we've touched on today. There's always more to consider.